And today we have, as usual, our Ambassador Professor Dr. Rania Lampo to share her topic on research. This is the next level, intermediate level, where we will be starting with the first session on research, design and methods. And today's lecture number 7 is on qualitative and quantitative research. For this, I would welcome, I think everybody know Dr. Rania. For this, I would like to invite her to start the session. Dr. Rania, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Estera. Good afternoon here from the Greek Ministry of Education. I would like to welcome you all to this session on research, design and methods. We have already explored the beginner's level, and now we are full ready for the foundational level. And let's remind that research is more than just collecting data. It's about asking the right questions, choosing the appropriate methods, and making sense of the answers we find. A solid research design, as we're going to see, is the backbone of any credible project, ensuring that our findings are valid, reliable, and relevant. So we have to say a lot today. Stay tuned with us.
Your slides here?
Yes, I will start sharing now.
I will add to the stage once I see the slides here. Sorry.
I don't know if it's visible now.
Yeah, it's here. I'll add to the stage. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the research design is actually the blueprint of any study. It outlines how data will be collected, analyzed, and interpreted to answer the research question. What are the main types of research designs? Quantitative, qualitative, and mixed methods. Quantitative focuses on numerical data, statistical analysis, and often seeks to test hypotheses. That could be experiments, surveys, etc. On the other hand, qualitative explores meanings, experiences, or concepts through non-numerical data. For example, surveys, observations, case studies. And mixed methods, this combines both quantitative and qualitative approaches in order to provide a comprehensive analysis. Some common other designs, very common, what we can mention is the first one, descriptive, which describes characteristic of a population or phenomenon. Correlational, this examines relationships between variables. Experimental, another session we will explore everything about quantitative design and about variables. Experimental, this involves manipulation of variables to determine cause and effect. Quasi-experimental, this is similar to experimental but lacks random assignment. And case study, which is what is in-depth investigation of a single unit, a person, a school, or a program. So, about the research methods. Research methods are the tools and techniques used to gather and analyze data. So, about the first one, which concerns quantitative methods like questionnaire surveys used to collect data from large groups, tested assessments which measure skills, knowledge of performance, experiments, control studies with variables manipulated and measured, and statistical analysis, which includes descriptive statistics, mean or median, and inferential statistics like regression or ANOVA. Quality methods, on the other hand, which includes interviews, whether these interviews are structured or semi-structured or unstructured, focus groups, group discussions to explore shared experiences, or observations, systemic watching, recording of behaviors, document and content analysis. This means analyzing text, media, or records. So, now about the sampling methods. The sampling methods defines how participants or cases are selected. The random sampling, you need to know these terms, these definitions. Random sampling, when everyone has an equal chance of selection. Stratified sampling, when we have a population which is divided into subgroups, and then they are randomly sampled. Purposive sampling, when participants are selected based on specific criteria, and convenience sampling, which is chosen based on ease of access. Data analysis techniques, quantitative uses usually statistic tools, as using software like SPSS, R or Excel. We will have the chance to explore SPSS in next sessions. And qualitative techniques for data analysis are usually we adopted thematic analysis, coding, narrative analysis using tools like NVivo, it's an amazing tool, AI, and or manual coding. Now, what about the research design now in more details? We need to understand the design styles and how do qualitative and quantitative designs differ in terms of data collection and analysis. Here you can see the nature of data. In qualitative design, the nature of data is not numerical descriptive. On the other hand, the quantitative design is numerical and measurable. What about data sources? Data sources, we have interviews, open-ended surveys, focus groups, observations. On the other hand, we have, for quantitative design, we have structured surveys, experiments, tests, databases. In terms of data collection tools, for qualitative design, we have field notes, open-ended questionnaires, audio-video recordings. On the other hand, with quantitative design, we can have questioning with closed-ended questions, instruments or software. In terms of sampling method, with qualitative design, we have a purposeful, theoretical, or snowball sampling. And with quantitative design, we have random, stratified, or systematic sampling. This means that we will adopt the sampling method according to which design we will select from the beginning. From the beginning, you need to already select which research design is appropriate for your research question and your whole study. And in terms of environment, qualitative design has to do with naturalistic settings. On the other hand, quantitative design is related with always controlled environments. In terms of data analysis now, first, if we talk about analysis, we mentioned that qualitative design has to do with thematic analysis, coding, and on the other hand, quantitative design focus on statistical analysis. That could be descriptive or inferential. With data form, the first one has words, images, symbols. The second one has numbers. The goal of analysis, qualitative design searches to understand meanings, experiences, and patterns. On the other hand, quantitative design tries to test hypotheses, to identify relationships, to generalize findings. The software, some softwares used for statistical analysis, very popular, SPSS, R, AS, Excel, Python. On the other hand, for qualitative analysis, Atlas is an amazing tool, AI tool, which includes also predictive analytics. NVivo, as I mentioned before, we're going to explore this also. Max, Qued, etc. And the outcome is that for qualitative analysis, this offers in-depth understanding, theory development, and the quantitative design there, the outcome is objective. Always we talk about objective conclusions and hypothesis confirmation. Now, the third most important research design is the mixed method design, which is most appropriate when a research question requires both quantitative and qualitative data in order to gain a comprehensive understanding of a problem. So this approach is especially useful when, first, when you need both breadth and depth, because quantitative data provides generalizable numerical trends, and qualitative data adds depth by exploring participants' experiences, perceptions, or motivations. For example, measuring students' performance statistically this is quantitative, while also exploring how students feel about the learning environment. So this is qualitative. When one method alone is sufficient, if neither qualitative nor quantitative approaches can fully address the research question on their own, combining them, this strengthens the study. For example, a survey might reveal that employee morale is low, this is quantitative, but interviews could uncover the underlying reasons, so qualitative. If you want to validate or explain results, using one method to confirm or elaborate on findings from the other increases the validity of our conclusions. For example, statistical trends can be followed up with interviews to explain surprising or ambiguous patterns. When the mixed method is appropriate when you are developing or testing a tool or intervention. So qualitative data can inform the design of a new instrument or program, and quantitative data can test its effectiveness. For example, conducting focus groups in order to design a new health app, then survey users to evaluate usability and outcomes. When you're addressing complex or multi-layered issues, so some problems are too complex to understand from a single perspective and benefit from methodological triangulation, for example, public health data, combining data on disease prevalence, which is quantitative, with community beliefs and behaviors, which is qualitative. So use a mixed method design when your research question needs both numerical evidence and contextual understanding to be fully answered. Then you need to choose a design. How will you determine the most suitable design for a particular research question? This involves a systematic, I would say, consideration of several factors. So a step-by-step guide could be like this. First, we need to understand the research question. Is it exploratory? Is it descriptive, explanatory? It's evaluative? For example, what is happening? This is exploratory because this has to do with a qualitative study. Descriptive, what is the status? The survey. Or explanatory, causal, why this is happening? This is related with experiments. Evaluative, what is the effect of an intervention? This is quasi-experiment. Secondly, we need to define the objectives of the study. Are you trying to explore, explain, or predict phenomena? The clearly defined objectives help in selecting between qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method designs. You need then to consider the nature of the data needed. Quantitative, number, statistical analysis. Qualitative, said about focus groups, interviews, and mixed methods. It's a combination of both. And assess practical constraints. The time, how long is the study period? Do you have access to tools, participants, or funding? Ethics, are there ethical considerations that limit certain designs? And define also the unit of analysis. Are you studying individuals, groups, organizations, or artifacts? Identify the level of control needed. High control means experimental or quasi-experimental designs for causality. On the other hand, low control, this is related with observational or naturalistic studies for understanding context. Review similar studies. What designs have been used for similar questions in your field? Literature review, for example, helps validate your choice and refine your approach. Match design to question type. What is happening? I mentioned before, this qualitative, how often, how much, quantitative. Why does it happen? Experimental, quasi-experimental. How does it work? How does it work? This involves mixed methods. It's a process evaluation. And consider validity reliability. You need to ensure that your chosen design supports internal validity. What is internal validity? It's the causal inference and external validity, which is generalizability, reliability, and construct validity. For example, how we could say, does a new teaching method improve student performance? What is the type here? The research question is explanatory and causal. Which is a suitable design? experimental. Why? Because, for example, if we use randomized control trial, or quasi-experimental if random assignment isn't feasible. Now, in what situations is, for example, I'll give the example of a case study, design preferable over survey design. A case study design is preferable when the goal is to explore complex, in-depth issues, when you need a deep, detailed understanding of a single case, for example, of a school, of an organization, of a program, of an individual, studying, for instance, how one school successfully implements inclusive education policies. Then we will need a case study. When we want to understand context-specific phenomena, case studies are ideal where the context plays a critical role in the research, social, cultural, organizational factors. For example, investigating how a company's culture influences employee innovation. When we want to generate new theories or hypotheses, when we explore emerging or poorly understood issues, case studies help generate insights that can later be tested in broader surveys. For example, examining how one community responds to climate change adaptation. And when we want to use multiple data sources, if your research involves multiple forms of data, for example, interviews, observations, documents, case study is a better study. Surveys, by contrast, typically rely on standardized questionnaires. And focus on how-why questions, because case studies are best for explanatory research, especially when asking how or why something happens. For example, why did a specific health program succeed in one region but not in another? And when not to use a case study, when you want to generalize findings across a large population, then we need to prefer a survey. And when your goal is to measure frequencies, trends, or correlations across many people. Now, so in general, we can say that we use a case study when depth, context, and complexity matter more than breadth. Use a survey when you need, on the other hand, generalizable, standardized data from a large group. Now, what are the advantages of using questionnaires in quantitative research? Because this is cost-effective, it's time-efficient, it can reach a large number of respondents quickly and at low cost, especially online. Every participant receives the same set of questions, ensuring consistency and objectivity. Responses are structured and numerical, making them suitable for statistical analysis using tools like SPSS. And scalable because it's ideal for collecting data from large populations, which increases the potential for generalization. When they're anonymous, participants also may feel more comfortable answering sensitive or personal questions. On the other hand, what are the limitations of using questionnaires in quantitative research? Because these questionnaires cannot explore complex or detailed explanations. There is no room for probing or follow-up like in interviews. Closed-ended questions may not capture the full range of participant experience or opinions, so fixed responses may limit expression. The risk of misinterpretation, because participants may misunderstand questions, especially without a researcher present to clarify. Low response rates online or mail service often suffer from this, from no response bias affecting the representativeness of the data. And social desirability bias, because respondents may answer in ways they believe are socially acceptable, but not necessarily truthful. So be careful of what we call social desirability bias. In summary, we could say that questionnaires are efficient and reliable tools for collecting large-scale quantitative data, but they must be carefully designed to avoid ambiguity, bias, and superficial results. How can the validity and reliability of a test instrument can be ensured? Ensuring the validity of and reliability of a test instrument is crucial in, for example, educational assessment and research in evaluation, and how this can be addressed. Validity refers to how well a test measures what is intended to measure. What is content validity? Ensures that the test covers all relevant content areas. and how to ensure by aligning questions with learning objectives or curriculum standards, by using a test blueprint or table of specifications, by having subject matter experts review items. Construct validity. This confirms confirms that our test actually measures the theoretical construct. For example, motivation, intelligence, etc. How to ensure construct validity? By basing test items on established theories and definitions, use factor analysis or similar statistical methods, and collect evidence through pilot testing. The criterion-related validity, which compares test results with an external benchmark or outcome, how to ensure by correlating test scores with other validated instruments, what we call confluent validity, and compare results with future performance, what we call predictive validity. Phase validity, when the test appears to measure what it's supposed to, how to ensure by asking feedback from students and experts, ensuring test instructions and items are clear and purposeful. And how to ensure reliability. What is reliability, first of all? We explain what is validity. We said that validity refers to how well a test measures what is intended to measure. On the other hand, what is reliability and how we can ensure reliability? Reliability refers to the consistency or stability of test scores over time. So first, test-retest reliability, how to ensure by administering the same test to the same group at 2 different times and analyze the correlation between the two sets of scores. Internal consistency, how to ensure by using statistical tests like Cronbach's alpha to measure item consistency or avoid ambiguous or double-barrel questions or ensure that all items measure the same underlying construct. Parallel forms reliability, how to ensure by creating 2 equivalent versions of the test and by administering both to the same group or compare results. Inter-rater reliability, how we can ensure this by using clear rubrics and scoring guidelines, by training evaluators to reduce subjectivity, and by conducting calibration sessions for scorers. So what are the ongoing steps to improve both validity and reliability? The pilot testing, try the test with a small group first and revise based on results. The item analysis, identify and revise poorly performing items, for example, items with low discrimination index. Clear instruction, ensure that all test takers understand what is required, and consistent administration, standardize test taking conditions. Now, for data analysis, what statistical tests are appropriate for comparing means across multiple groups? In order to compare means across multiple groups, we need to choose a statistical test based on a number of groups, the types of data, and assumptions about variance and distribution. So here's a breakdown. One way, ANOVA, analysis of variance. When we use this, when we're comparing the means of 3 or more independent groups. What are our assumptions here? Normally distributed groups, homogeneity of variances, equal variances, and independent observations. For example, we want to compare average test scores across 4 classrooms. On the other hand, two-way ANOVA. When we use this, when we are examining the effect of 2 independent variables on a dependent variable, then we can detect the main effects, interaction effects, for example, when we test the effect of teaching method and gender on test scores. Repeated measures ANOVA. When the same participants are measured under different conditions within subject design. For example, measuring blood pressure in the same group before, during, and after treatment. Then we want to use repeated measures ANOVA. When we use multivariate ANOVA, when we have multiple dependent variables and we want to compare across groups. For example, if we want to compare math and reading scores across different schools. Kruskal-Wallis test, no parametric alternative to ANOVA. When we use this, when the assumptions of ANOVA are violated. So no normal distribution nor unequal variances are there. And this test compares medians across multiple groups. For example, we want to compare customer satisfaction ratings across 4 different stores, ordinal data. If A and ANOVA classical models show significant results, then we can use post hoc tests to determine which specific groups differ. What are some post hoc tests, like take case HSD for ANOVA, a dance test for classical values. So here you can see what is the use case for each test on ANOVA. We compare means to ANOVA compared to factors, repeated measures ANOVA within subjects, ANOVA, multiple outcomes, classical values, no parametric. The groups, the data type, and our assumptions that I mentioned before. Now, how do you interpret the correlation coefficient and what does it tell you? A correlation or coefficient, usually denoted by R, quantifies the strength and direction of a linear relationship between two variables. It ranges from 1 minor to plus 1. So what is the value of this correlation coefficient? The strength of correlation. What is the value of the strength of correlation? Here you can see the value when there's a very strong positive correlation, when there is strong, when there is moderate, when it's weak, when there's no correlation at all. When we have weak negative or moderate negative or strong negative or very strong negative. What is direction relationship? Whereas positive as one variable increases, so does the other. Negative as one variable increases, the other decreases. 0 when there is no linear relationship. Important notes here that a strong correlation does not imply that one variable causes the other. It's very different to say correlation, to work correlation with causation. Do not confuse these two terms. Linear only that the person measures only linear relationships. No linear relationships may exist even if this coefficient is 0. And outliers can greatly distort correlation. The types of correlation coefficient. Persons, this assumes linearity and normally distributed data, use interval ratio data, Spearman's. This is for ranked ordinal data, nonlinear monotonic relationships, and Kendall-Stokes is for smaller samples or when there are many tight ranks. The statistical significance, these things that you need to know today from this session, you need to know the most important, I think, key takeaway for today is the statistical significance, that a correlation can be tested for statistical significance, typically using a p-value. A significant correlation suggests that the relationship is unlikely due to chance. And this example, for example, here's a coefficient and the statistical significance. So this suggests how we can interpret this, that the strong negative correlation, that as one variable increases, the other tends to decrease. The result is statistically significant. In another session, we will explore more of this. We will explain more in details the quantitative method. And now some basics about qualitative methods. About data collection techniques, you can see data collection here. We use in-depth interviews, focus groups, participant observation, content analysis, visual methods, diets and journals, and some. The advantages of this is that we talk about flexibility, contextualization, rich data, multiple perspectives, realistic setting, and in-depth understanding. A difference also, we can see here differences between the data collection tools and methods of the quantitative design. In data collection, for qualitative design uses interview sessions. For example, semi-structured interviews are considered a flexible tool for qualitative inquiry because they combine structure with openness, allowing for both consistency and depth. So, interview sessions, discussion, focus groups, case studies, ethnography. On the other hand, we have data collection. Sorry. I will share again because okay.
What happened? Disconnected from your laptop?
Yes. Wait a minute.
Okay.
Now is it fine?
Let me add to the stage. Yeah. I've already added to the stage, but it doesn't appear here. Is the link correct? Yeah,
Yes.
it's coming. Okay.
It's coming. You can see also the change of
Yeah,
slides.
it's visible. Can you change the? Yeah, it was that. This is the last slide.
You can see the change of slides.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So, for quantitative design, we use experiments, observation, content analysis for our collection. And the tools for quantitative could be online or web, face-to-face, or phone, or mails. For qualitative, we have online forums, online communities, depth interviews, etc. So what makes, for example, semi-structured interviews especially adaptable and valuable in qualitative research? The guided structure with room for exploration because researchers use a predetermined set of questions or topics, but they are not bound to them strictly. Interviewers can ask follow-up questions, probe deeper, or explore unexpected themes based on participant responses. Open-ended questions promote also in-depth explanations, personal experiences, and meaningful narratives, so participants can express their thoughts freely, offering insight into their perspectives, emotions, and reasoning. The conversational style also helps put participants at ease, especially when discussing sensitive or complex topics, and this can lead to more honest and authentic answers, which enrich the data. Allows for comparison and thematic analysis. While it's flexible, the use of a core question set allows researchers to compare responses across participants, and at the same time, the open nature enables new themes to emerge, which is essential in qualitative inquiry, and supports iterative learning because researchers can refine or add the questions as the study progresses, based on what they learned from earlier interviews. And this adaptability makes it useful in exploratory or evolving research contexts. So what we could say that semi-structured interviews strike a balance between a consistency for comparison, and freedom for depth and discovery, making them a powerful, flexible tool in qualitative research. And how, as researchers, we can avoid bias while conducting participant observation? Is it possible? Try to avoid bias is important in order to ensure credible, objective, and valid research findings. So first, we need to be aware of personal biases. Acknowledge, first, it's about self-reflection. For example, we need to acknowledge and examine our own assumptions, values, and cultural background we formed during the observation. Reflexivity, we can keep a reflexive journal to record our thoughts, our feelings, and potential sources of bias. We can use a structured observation guide, so develop a checklist or observation protocol to standardize what we are observing across settings. This reduces selective attention and helps us focus on objective behaviors rather than subjective interpretations. Then we can minimize observer influence, reactivity. If it's possible, we can reduce the observer's visibility so participants act naturally. So spend more time. Prolonged engagement allows participants to become accustomed to the observer's presence, reducing this way behavioral changes caused by being watched. This is what we call Hawthorne effect. By using multiple observers, triangulation, a very important term that we're going to encounter during the whole research journey. Triangulation is the key word, has to do with multiple sources, and this involves, for example, another trainer observed, compare notes to reduce individual bias. If it's not possible, record field notes. We can record field notes for later review and validation, combining with other data sources. Use triangulation by combining observation data with interviews, documents, or surveys to confirm findings and reduce reliance on a single biased view. And use direct quotations and concrete descriptions, record actual behaviors in direct speech rather than interpreting or labeling actions. Peer review was important of debriefing. We can discuss findings and field notes with peers or supervisors to check for biased interpretations, and maybe they can challenge our assumptions and help ensure objectivity. And always take notes or immediately during or immediately after observation to avoid memory distortion or unintentional filtering. Maintain transparency. Clearly describe your role, presence, your methods in your report so that readers can assess the potential for bias themselves. Avoid over-identifying with participants, so be cautious of going, what we call going native. Losing objectivity by becoming too emotionally or ideologically involved with the group. So, what is the strategy? Reflexivity in order to identify personal biases, structure observation protocol in order to ensure consistent data collection, triangulation, which always increases credibility, peer debriefing, which offers external checks, behavioral description, which avoids interpretation bias. Now, for data analysis, what are the steps involved in thematic analysis? Thematic analysis in qualitative research design is a method for identifying, analyzing, and reporting patterns, the themes within qualitative data. It's widely used in social sciences and psychology. The most important framework, which is outlined by Brown and Clark, includes 6 steps. These 6 steps. First, we need to be familiarized with the data. So immerse ourselves in the data to gain a deep understanding. How? By reading and rereading transcripts or documents, by noting initial ideas, observations, or potential patterns. Secondly, generate initial codes. What is the goal here? Systematically identify interesting features of the data. How? By coding manually or using software, NVivo or Atlas T to amazing AI tools. Label chunks of data relevant to the research question. Codes should be meaningful and concise. And searching for themes. What is the goal here? Group codes into potential themes by examining how different codes combine to form overarching themes, by organizing codes under broader theme categories, or by creating a thematic map or outline. Reviewing themes. The goal here is to refine the themes to ensure that they accurately represent the data. So what you can do is check if themes work in relation to the coded data and the full data set. Then modify, merge, or discard themes as needed, and reread data under each theme to ensure coherence. Define and name themes. Clearly define what each theme means and why it's important. So describe the essence of its theme, determine subthemes if applicable, and assign concise, informative names to each theme. Producing the report to tell the story of the data, how? In a compelling and structured way. By using vivid examples and codes from the data, by relating findings back to research questions and literature, and by ensuring that the report provides a coherent, logical, and persuasive narrative. I mentioned about coding before. Coding helps make sense of qualitative data by transforming unstructured information like interview transcripts or open-ended survey responses or field notes into organized, analyzable patterns. So how coding supports this process? By organizing data into manageable units. Coding involves assigning labels or codes to chunks of text that represent themes, ideas, or concepts. And this allows researchers to break down large volumes of data into smaller and meaningful categories. Second, it identifies patterns and themes because repeated ideas or behaviors across participants can be highlighted through codes. So these patterns help reveal underlying themes or trends that may not be obvious on a first reading. Then, coding helps with comparison because coding lets you compare responses across different individuals, groups, or settings. For example, you can see how different demographics talk about a common experience. Supports theory building. By clustering related codes into categories and themes, researchers can build theoretical frameworks or models, and this is essential in approaches like grounded theory or thematic analysis. Improves transparency and rigor. A clear coding system makes it easier to explain and justify how conclusions were drawn. It also allows other researchers to review, replicate, or critique the analysis and facilitates data retrieval because once coded, it's easier to pull out all data related to specific concept, and this speeds up analysis and reporting. So in short, we could say that coding bridges raw qualitative data and meaningful interpretation, make it possible to draw insights systematically and rigorously. Now, what are the benefits of integrating mixed method approach in a single study? This offers several important benefits that enhance the depth, the breadth, and validity of our findings. What are the key important advantages? Comprehensive understanding because quantitative data provides numerical evidence and patterns. Qualitative data offers context, explanation, and meaning, and combining both gives a more complete and nuanced picture of the research problem. Complementarity because qualitative insights can explain the why and how, and quantitative data can confirm or generalize findings to a larger population, and this interplay enhances the overall interpretation of results. Triangulation using multiple methods allows for cross-validation of findings, and this increases credibility and trustworthiness by showing that results are consistent across different data sources. Researchers this way can address complex research questions that require both numeric measurement exploration of experiences or perceptions. So we talk about flexibility, adaptability allows for iterative data collection where one method informs or shapes the other. Improved instrument development, qualitative data can help design better quantitative instruments, for example, surveys based on themes from interviews, and qualitative results can identify areas for further qualitative exploration. Enhanced false relevance and practical application because a mixed method approach can provide insights that are both statistically sound and rich in context, useful for policymakers, for practitioners, for example, and stakeholders. And this helps in developing interventions and solutions grounded in real-world understanding. So mixed methods findings appeal to a wider range, we could say, of audiences, those who value numbers and those who value narrative. In summary, we could see that integrating qualitative and quantitative data strengthens a study's rigor and relevance, providing a richer, more actionable understanding of the research topic. And how can researchers effectively sequence qualitative and quantitative phases in mixed methods? Some common strategies and tips. Here we have the sequence type for exploratory, when to use, when little is known, you want to build hypotheses or instruments. Explanatory, when you want to explain unexpected or complex quantitative findings. Simultaneous look, when both types of data are equally important and complement each other. And iterative, when one method needs to inform or enrich the other during the study. So here we have the sequence type, when to use it, and the description. Exploratory, this starts with qualitative data to explore a topic. Then you use quantitative methods to test or generalize findings. With exploratory sequence type, we start with quantitative data collection analysis, followed by qualitative to explain or expand results. With simultaneous sequence type, we collect qualitative and quantitative data at the same time, both. Then we integrate during analysis. And for iterative, one method is primary, the other supports or provides context. For example, qualitative embedded in a quantitative survey. So what are the key considerations for effective sequencing? You need to ask, is the goal exploration, explanation, or confirmation? This is what often dictates which phase comes first. So the research purpose is the first one. Then you decide where and how to integrate data during collection, analysis, or interpretation, the creation points. Then you consider a project timeline and feasibility of conducting phases sequentially or concurrently. Timing the resources and data dependency. Sometimes one phase depends on results from the other. For example, qualitative teams use to develop a survey. And some practical tips is that you need to have a clear plan for how qualitative and quantitative findings will connect. For example, then use qualitative data to inform quantitative instruments. Interviewing sites, for example, can help design survey questions. Use quantitative results to guide qualitative sampling. For example, select interview participants based on survey responses. And maintain flexibility, be open to adapting sequencing based on emerging findings. Report clearly, describe sequencing rationale, timing and integration strategy transparently. So an example scenario here, we have exploratory sequential design. The first phase is how to conduct a focus group to identify the key factors which affect the student motivation. The second phase could be develop and distribute a survey based on those factors to quantify their prevalence and impact. This is exploratory sequential design. Now, explanatory sequential design. The first phase here is to analyze test scores to identify patterns in student performance, and then the second phase, we try to conduct interviews with students from different performance groups to explore underlying reasons. Now, sampling techniques. What are the implications of using, for example, convenience sampling? Convenience sampling is a no probability sampling technique where participants are selected based on their easy availability and proximity to the researcher. While it is commonly used for its simplicity and speed, it has several important implications for research. The limited generalizability, because participants are not randomly selected, the sample may not represent a broader population, and findings cannot confidently be extended beyond the specific group studied. Sampling bias. The sample might be biased towards certain characteristics. For example, people who are more willing or accessible or similar in some way. So this bias can affect the validity and reliability of a study's conclusion. There are threats to external validity. External validity, we said, that refers to how well the results can be generalized to other settings or populations. So convenience samples often limit external validity due to unrepresentative samples. The potential for overrepresentation or underrepresentation. Certain groups might be overrepresented, for example, students on the campus, while others are completely excluded. This alters the data and can lead to misleading interpretations. The risk of homogeneity. Samples drawn from a single location or group may lack diversity. This limits the ability to explore variations across different demographics or contexts. And what are the ethical considerations here? That convenience sampling can sometimes pressure easily available participants into the study, raising concerns about voluntary participation. Researchers must ensure that ethical standards are maintained despite the simplifying method. And when is convenience sampling appropriate? When we have exploratory or pilot studies, when quick preliminary insights are needed, when resources or access to a broader population are limited, for descriptive research, when generalization is not the main goal. Another type of sampling is what we call stratified random sampling. This type actually improves the representativeness of a study by ensuring what? By ensuring that all key subgroups, all strata, or within the population are properly represented in the sample. So how this works and why this is effective? First, it divides the population into strata. The population is divided into distinct groups based on important characteristics that could be age, gender, income, education, etc. Each stratum is more homogeneous internally. Secondly, random sampling within each stratum. Samples are randomly selected from each stratum proportionally or equally depending on the study design. So this ensures that no subgroup is accidentally left out or underrepresented. Improves representativeness because since all relevant subgroups are included, the overall sample better reflects the diversity of the entire population. And this reduces sample bias compared to simple random sampling, which might miss or undersample smaller or less common groups. Enhances precision and validity by controlling for variation between strata. Estimates of population parameters like means or proportions tend to be more accurate. So this increases, like we said, statistical efficiency, often requiring a smaller sample size to achieve the same level of precision. Stratified random sampling ensures that key population segments are proportionally represented, reducing bias and improving the accuracy and generalizability of the study's findings. So, in the previous sessions, we have mentioned some important ethical considerations in research. So the same happens in research design, that the first one is what we call informed consent. It's critical in both qualitative and quantitative research because it ensures respect for participants' rights, autonomy, and well-being throughout the research process. So why it matters? Because participants have the right to make an informed decision about whether they want to take part in the study. This empowers them with clear information about the purpose, procedures, risks, benefits, allowing voluntary participation. It helps protect participants from physical, physiological, psychological, social, or legal risks because by understanding potential risk, participants can decide if they're willing to accept them. Consent also builds trust between researchers and participants by promoting openness. So it fosters a positive ethical relationship that encourages honest communication. Informed consent is also a fundamental ethical requirement in research guidelines. Belmont Report, for example, Declaration of Helsinki. And it ensures that researchers comply with institutional review boards and legal standards. Data integrity. Participants who willingly consent are more likely to provide authentic and reliable information. This is, I think, normal to believe, and ethical conduct supports the credibility of research and findings. Informed consent also includes the right to withdraw from the study at any time without penalty, and this respects participants' control over their involvement in personal data. So in summary, informed consent is essential to uphold ethical standards, protect participants, and ensure that the research is conducted with integrity and respect to whether it's qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method approach. And researchers should maintain confidentiality in studies involving sensitive topics. So what are some key strategies that they can use? First, anonymizing data. Remove or code any direct identifiers. That could be ID numbers, addresses. Use pseudonyms or participant codes in transcripts and reports. Avoid including details that could indirectly identify participants. Secure data storage. Store data on encrypted devices or secure service with restricted access, or keep physical documents, locked cabinets, or limit access to authorized research team members. Informed consent with confidentiality assurance. Clearly explain to participants how their data will be used and protected. Inform them of limits to confidentiality. For example, risk of harm disclosures. Obtain written consent specifying confidentiality measures. And careful reporting, try to aggregate data to avoid exposing individual identities, avoid reporting unique or rare characteristics that could identify someone, and use general descriptors rather than specifics. Train the research team, ensure that all team members understand confidentiality protocols, and use confidential settings for data collection. Conduct interviews or focus groups in private, safe spaces. Avoid recording identifiable information unless it's necessary and secured. Minimize data collection to necessary information. Collect only data essential for the risks to reduce risk. Avoid sensitive questions unless they are directly relevant. And plan for data sharing and publication. If data is shared, for example, on repositories, then ensure that this is de-identified. Follow guidelines on sensitive data management from ethics boards or funders, and develop protocol for breaches. Have a clear plan in case confidentiality is accidentally breached. Communicate with participants and take corrective actions immediately. So how we will design a study to measure the effectiveness of an AI, for example, based learning tool in classrooms, an application here. This involves careful planning to ensure valid, reliable, and meaningful results. So here is a structured approach that you can follow. You define the research objectives. Does this tool improve this test or scores? How does it affect student engagement and motivation? Are there differences across subjects or student demographics? Then choose the study design. If here the experimental design is recommended. So randomized control trial, randomly you can assign randomly classrooms of students to two groups. We have intervention group, which uses the AI learning tool, and we have the control group, which uses traditional learning methods or an alternative tool. This design helps establish causality by controlling for confounding variables. And
Yeah, Dr. Rania,
yes,
may
yes.
may I interrupt for a while? Okay, on this topic, how would you design a study to measure the effectiveness of an AI-based learning tool in classrooms? So, is it possible for us to have a session to demo, take an example, and we see how point number one, defining the research objectives, like maybe you can give a case and then
Okay.
we
So we will
maybe
meet
next
in
session.
another session. Yes, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, I think this will be very helpful. People will understand, especially the students, they will understand better. Yeah, interesting also. Yeah,
Yes,
so
of
next,
course, of course.
so
So we'll speak.
yeah,
Thank
so
you.
next session can be put as a part two for this. Yeah,
Yes,
under
of
the
course,
same
of
topic,
course,
part two. Huh? Okay,
of
sorry.
course, of course.
Yeah, please carry on.
So the potential bias in a self-reported survey, things that you need to know here. Self-reported surveys are valuable, but they can introduce several potential biases that affect data quality. What I mentioned before, the social desirability bias, when respondents answer in a way they think is socially acceptable or favorable rather than truthful. Recall bias. What is recall bias? The difficulty remembering past events accurately, leading to incorrect or incomplete answers. For example, forgetting exact dates or frequencies of behaviors. Response biases. Tendencies to respond in a particular way regardless of the question content. This, for example, is extreme response bias, choosing only the most extreme options. Sampling bias, when the survey group is not representative of the broader population, this limits generalizability. Question wording and order effects. Leading or confusing questions can skew, can alter responses. The order of questions may also influence answers. So how to minimize all this bias is to ensure anonymity, confidentiality, use clear, neutral, and specific questions always, avoid leading or ambiguous wording, pilot test the survey to identify confusing questions, employ, if it's possible, memory aids, use timeline, calendar, specific reference points to improve recall accuracy, balance question formats, mix positively and negatively worded items to reduce the bias, or you can use Likert scales carefully and consider including neutral options. Use validated instruments. Always use, for example, surveys that have been tested for reliability and validity in similar populations. And improve sampling methods. Use stratified or random sampling techniques to get a more representative sample. Randomized question order to minimize order effects, shuffle questions where this is possible. So, in summary, we could say that recognizing this bias and applying thoughtful survey design and administration strategies, this can significantly improve the accuracy and trustworthiness of self-reported data. So, more or less, I think I will stop here. And next time, as you suggested, Dr. Estera, we can take the example of the AI-based tool and think how we can apply the two research design, qualitative and quantitative, or the mixed method approach, and what should be the structure about. Thank you very much. And of course, in other sessions, we will explore in details qualitative, separate session, quantitative. We have a lot to say, not only this. During the third part, the last part, we'll focus on how we can explore these designs with AI. We will suggest all the AI tools that researchers now they have at their disposal in every stage of the research process, in every stage, for literature review, for citations, for reference management, for everything we will suggest with data collection, with analysis, which tools are the most popular. And we will recommend the tools according to the strengths and weaknesses. All tools, of course, there is no best tool, but there are strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to discuss about this. In the last part of our presentation, we'll focus on AI tools that we can use.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this wonderful session, Dr. Rania. And excellent. Okay, thank you so much for your time and effort. I'm very sure our audience would have gained much from your sharing. And I hope you will continue with us, dear audience, and do not miss. And we will also upload this session on our YouTube. You may, if in case you miss our live, you can also watch it on our YouTube channel. And please like and share our YouTube. Thank you so much. Have a nice day ahead.